It's great to be back. Thank you all for having me. Right now, we are entering into the Christmas season, and much of the church throughout its history has celebrated a season known as Advent. And this would be the second week of Advent, which we are currently in right now. And this is an old practice. It's been around since about 4th century AD, in which the church would gather each week and light a candle. And the lighting of this candle each week was to represent a different part of our entry into our expectation of what is to come. And some of that expectation was looking back of, the preparation of Israel for their coming Messiah. But some of that preparation was also for the church, looking forward, expecting and preparing itself for the return of Jesus. And so, the first week was a week that focused around expectation. It is our expectation for the coming King. And it's also the expectation of Israel for their Messiah. The second week, which is where we are right now, is a week of hope. And it is one that is looking forward, that is joyous, and we know what the prophets have said, and we know what is coming, and we can hope for something joyous to come. The third week is a celebration of that joy. And it's represented slightly different in the Advent wreath with a pink candle. All the rest were purple. And it was meant to liven up. It's an anticipation of extraordinary joy in the coming of our King, our Savior, our Messiah. And the fourth is a symbol of purity, in which we take the time to purify ourselves and ready ourselves for that coming. But despite the soberness of the season, there is joy. And that joy comes from our knowledge that God is working to draw us closer to Him all the time. And so, I would like for us to consider this as we move on today, which is Israel was anticipating their Messiah. And they had a lot of work to do sometimes to prepare themselves as a nation for that. And we as a church sometimes have to take a moment to prepare ourselves as well in anticipation of His return. If you would all turn in with me in our Bibles to Isaiah 40. I'll read today's passage. Comfort, comfort my people, says your God. Speak tenderly to Jerusalem and cry to her that her warfare is ended, that her iniquity is pardoned, that she has received from the Lord's hand double for all of her sins. A voice cries in the wilderness, prepare the way of the Lord. Make straight in the desert a highway for our God. Every valley shall be lifted up, and every mountain and hill will be made low. The uneven ground shall become level, and the rough places a plain. And the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together. From the mouth of the Lord has spoken. Now, most of us forgive me. I'm touching it, it's making noise. Most of us, when we look at it, remember that this passage is also used in our memory of John the Baptist. And we recognize that he was a voice crying out in the wilderness to prepare and make way the way of the Lord. Now, I don't know about you, but growing up in the American culture, I really don't know what it means to prepare for a king's arrival. We don't typically stop and have celebration or all of the things that the ancient world used to do to prepare for a king, because we don't really look at our leaders in the same way that they did. But back in the ancient world, and the closest thing that I could really relate this to might be a Roman general when he returns from war, victorious. This general was exalted in the kingdom. He had chariots lined up. He was able to march in the city of Rome, or he was put on chariot. His whole army marched behind him in part of this glorious procession. They had feasts, celebrations, and this went on for weeks. And this is something that we are not prepared or used to doing. But in Rome, a glorious general was remembered forever. He was honored forever. Every time that feast or celebration or anything that came up, he was remembered. When we say make straight the paths of the Lord, when we say prepare the kingdom, that means that we have to be prepared to do such things. We need to celebrate and anticipate his coming arrival. And yet, it is a scene of incredible consternation to me that a world-class violinist was able to play on a subway, in a subway station. Thousands of people walk by him every day, completely unaware of the wonder that is happening in their midst. Or that someone can walk up to a Salvation Army drop box and drop thousands, tens of thousands, $50,000 worth of donations and completely go unnoticed. And sometimes I wonder, is not our God like this? Sometimes he is operating in ways that we don't know, that we do not see, and it can be going on around us completely unaware. Christmas is one of those seasons where we all come together. Families come together to celebrate. We put presents around a tree, put lights up. We serve hot cocoa and wassail, and we just celebrate. And that is a wonderful thing. But greater thing is remembering the birth of our Savior and the wonder that was in that moment for each and every one of us. Sometimes we get so focused on the things of this earth that we don't look at the heavenly. We don't prepare for the heavenly. But if Jesus had not come, people like you and me would probably still be barbarians killing one another in the middle of Europe, completely unaware of all that God has been doing. Our entire worldviews would have been different. Our future, our peoplehood is changed. In the 25th chapter of Matthew, Jesus tells them a parable. And I'd like to read it for you. Then the kingdom of heaven shall be compared to 10 maidens who took their lamps to meet the bridegroom. 5 of them were foolish, and 5 of them were wise. For when the foolish took their lamps, they took no oil with them. But the wise took flasks of oil with their lamps. As the bridegroom was delayed, they all slumbered and slept. But at midnight there was a cry, Behold, the bridegroom! Come out to meet him. Then all those maidens rose and trimmed their lamps. And the foolish said to the wise, Give us some of your oil, for the lamps are going out. But the wise replied, Perhaps there will not be enough for us and for you. Go rather to the dealers and buy for yourselves. And while they went to buy, the bridegroom came, and those that were ready went in with him to the marriage feast. And the door was shut. Afterward the other maidens came also, saying, Lord, Lord, open to us. But he replied, Truly, I say to you, I do not know you. Watch therefore, for you know neither the day nor the hour. When we look at this parable, we see 5 wise and 5 foolish bridesmaids. And when the 5 that were foolish asked for help, the 5 that were ready, that were prepared, were unable to help. And so he sent them out to go get oil. And the 5 go with the bridegroom to the wedding banquet, but they went to go get oil in an hour and they were shut out, for they were not known. But what is the problem here? The problem isn't really that the 5 were unwilling to share with the others. The real problem is that the 5 that should have been prepared were not. When something wonderful was about to happen, they were unaware. They were unprepared. And they missed out. In the same way that the people of Israel had to prepare themselves for the coming birth of Christ. A lot of Israel missed out. They were not prepared. They did not know what was going on. They were like these bridegrooms that did not prepare themselves. As a church, we must also prepare our hearts and minds in the same way that these bridegrooms, the wise bridegrooms, were, in order to have ourselves prepared. Because he is coming again. And when he does come again, if we're like the 5 foolish ones, we'll miss out. So how we do this is between us and God. But some ways to do this is evident throughout the Scriptures. Micah 6:8 tells us, He has told you, O mortal, what is good, and what does the Lord require of you but to do justice, and to love kindness, and to walk humbly with your God. This is an excellent place to prepare yourselves for the coming of God. Luke 9:48 tells us, Whoever welcomes this child in my name welcomes me, and whoever welcomes me welcomes the one who sent me. For the least among you is also the greatest. Finally, in John 13:34-35, Jesus tells his disciples, I give you a new commandment, that you love one another. Just as I have loved you, you should also love one another. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another. So, in the spirit of Advent, in the spirit of hope, when we hope, we should not hope in unpreparedness, but we should hope in such a way as to where we want to do the work inside our own lives, to do the will of God. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you love one another. And that is something that individually, as a congregation, as a family, as a church, as people, I think that we should focus on. For that is how those outside the church will know us. That is how we draw in others. And that is how we begin the work of the King. Care for those that need in this season. By all means, celebrate. But welcome in those around you to celebrate with you. For our actions speak louder than our words. And if we are celebrating amongst ourselves without welcoming in others to see the wonder and the glory that we have seen, that we see in the things that are going on around us, that is the way to celebrate this season. In doing these things, we will prepare our hearts and our minds for the coming of our King.